Nugget. Been a little minute since I've done a Divine Nugget. And this one's interesting. I almost put it in with, I have a series called Let's Talk About Death. I think this is just going to be a short one. And then if I feel called to, I'll put it in the Let's Talk About Death series. So it feels like this one's, it feels like a message that one would be good to go in multiple places so many people can find it. And also just that, well, so we're talking about fear of death, right? And what's interesting is that over the last year, like I've had a lot of literal deaths around me, close family members, distant family members. A lot of people get sick, get near death, loss of pets, people that have gone from all sorts of different things, and loss of relationships, loss of work, all sorts of stuff. And I'm grateful for it. I'm really grateful for it. And I'm noticing, and I suppose I'm not surprised because we have the solar eclipse energy and we have a lot of other big eclipse energy, supermoon energies, things like that going on. And especially right now, today is the Ring of Fire solar eclipse in Gemini with the sun in Gemini. So we've got the energy of truth and lies, the energy of duality, the energy of the masks we wear, and it's also energy of like, well, sort of those closest to us. It's both those that we spend the most time with, and also those are a little bit distant from us, maybe siblings or close cousins, things like that. And it's also like it rules the third house, which is, for me, it's the dining room. It's the dinner table, where you sit around and discuss whatever you like to discuss with people. And so it fits to me that this energy is coming up and that it's like moving through the collective. Is that, and what I'm noticing, because I've had many moments, it's still growing, where it was, to overcome the fear of death. And I was worried about pursuing any of that because I didn't want to go on the opposite end of that spectrum and have no fear of death. I feel like a healthy reverence towards both death and life are, well, it feels like it's necessary, though. I mean, plenty of people live more in the extremes of it, so it's not survival based, but it feels like the way to get out of living survival based, no matter where you're starting from, is to definitely approach fear of death. Because here's the thing, fear of death is not like when we're talking about literal death, like our mortality, totally understandable. Have a healthy reverence, even some fear for it. Like, that's what helps us remember to take care of our bodies. It's what helps us remember not to do crazy things with other people's bodies, and it teaches us empathy for the young and the old and everyone along the way. And it also teaches us to be grateful for the time that we have with everybody while we have it, because you never do know when you might not have time with somebody. Though the interesting thing is, when we have, I want to call it an unevolved fear of death, it can translate into so many different things. It can be fear of loss of relationships with lovers, with friends, with family member. That could be fear of abandonment. That's fear of death. Fear of being left alone. It could be fear of loneliness. It could be fear of everything will collapse if you don't hold it all up. It could be fear of telling people no when you really don't have the energy to do what they want to do, and worrying that if you do that it'll be bad or they'll look at you funny. It can be fear. It can show up in anxiety about what are the right words to say to keep everybody happy. It could be fear of going in for an interview because you might not get the job, or fear of quitting a job because it might be a while till you get a new one, or you might not get one that was as good as that. It can be fear of letting go of relationships that are either unhealthy for you, or they're just not satisfying in the ways that you would like them to be, and you want to have the next experience, and you feel that it's just not working for both of you. Like it could be made to work, but you know at that point, if it could be made to work, it's not really working. And fear of death could keep you in it because what if you can't get anything better? What if you can't come back to it later? What if you hurt somebody? That can be another one, fear of hurting people. Like we tend to take so much hyper accountability about how other people might feel on what we do that we tend to not be authentic. And in trying to be almost overly empathetic, the bigger problem is that we get tired, we get compassion fatigue. And then when people really need us in a real moment, oftentimes we're not there because we let the jump ropes get tangled around our legs trying to keep jumping and jumping and jumping without a song in there or a level where we feel comfortable going, okay, my legs are tired, I should jump out now, you know? And I think it's valuable to understand how you can see a fear of death or like in you and around you, as it can help you get to more emotionally secure places that can actually help you avoid death. Like if you're so anxious and worried about what everyone else will think if you make this big health decision or this big life change or relationship change or things like that, you're much, you're going to be so wrapped up in that anxiety about what other people are thinking or doing or wanting or will think of you, that you're not really living your life. And two, the more decisions that you make, like, it has to be a balance. It can't be all collective, it can't be all individual, especially as an individual. Like, we both make up both. You can't have the collective without the individual. You can't have the individual without the collective. That's why we made this human experience, to have that duality. And it's perfect to talk about it in Gemini energy, right? But I find that the more that you live in fear of what the collective might think, what the court of public opinion might think, what might happen, that the more you spend your life worrying, and there are definite times to stop and ponder. Okay, this is a wider thing, this is a bigger thing, this is a more political thing, whatever things that are going on, whether it's personal and in your own home or it's going on in the greater world. Yes, stop and consider it and find your reverence space for death and for life, and then look at how, like, are you making decisions that are based on your love for life and having a good quality of life, and without taking away from the quality of life from others? If you feel like it is and it resonates with you, and the way that you're acting feels like it resonates with your truths and what's right in your heart, then go with it and don't mind so much what wider society thinks, because there are just as many times in society throughout history that we've had minorities that said no, and it was a good thing, and they still, yeah, they got beat up for it all over the place. That's going to keep happening. And there's not really like a right or a wrong. We go through spiral cycles like this as humans on different levels and different ways that we connect with things. It's going to happen in there. You get many choices to decide, is it right for me to stand with the crowd? Is it right for me to stand either alone or within the minority? Whatever the issue is, you're not really going to be able to find your place in it if you're more worried about everybody else. Like, you can't really even help anybody else if you don't stop and think about you and stand with what's true for you until such a time that you get more information, and either you reaffirm what you felt was true, or you change your mind. There's no reason to have hard rules on it. It feels like hard rules are based on fear of death. And I really like if you think about the tarot card, the death card, one of the first things in almost every book will tell you when you shows you descriptions of the death card is, this is not likely a literal death. It's about transformation. And almost all times that we're talking about deaths in our lives, whether it's our own or people we care about or things like that, it's a fear of loss, it's a fear of lowered quality of life, and it's a fear of kind of a loss of meaningfulness if we lose certain key components, whether it's a friend who moves away, or a parent who passes, or a loved one who needs to go off on their own and have different adventures, like whatever it is. When we get into fear of death, of losing things, of lack, then we start to make hard rules that oftentimes are hard for us to follow. And then we also get into fighting with each other because we get in this very black and white thinking. It's either this or that. You're either on my side or you're not. You're with me or against me. And fear of death, when you get collectively involved, can be very bullisome, whether the information is there or not. Like, that's a definite way that those in power will use to get people roused. Like, oh my gosh, you might die. And they'll bring it in there, and it's not that those are not real things. It's not that they're not real, though. When we spend our time, what we spend our time focusing on is what grows. And I don't know about you, but I do not want to spend time focusing on growing more stuff like that, like loss of any kind. There should be healthy reverence for it, though. It's up to you. I mean, if you feel like it requires your focus, if you feel like others are pulling your focus in and you feel like you want to give it some, then do it. Likewise, if you feel like, you know what, I want to grow life, I want to contribute to healthy, secure relationships, care for yourself, and balance care with others, and you don't feel like it's a collective call for you in certain issues, that's fine, because you never know. There's going to be some issues that you feel are important and get called to, and you're going to be that person out there working on that, whether it's in your private life or more community life. And there are going to be other moments that, and there'll be people that don't join you for that. And there'll be other stuff that people go and do and that you're not going to join them for. Like, if we were all at everything all the time, we probably have less progress, and two, we'd all be exhausted. So don't, give yourself grace. Give yourself grace, give others grace, and maybe just stop and take the time to think, is there any part of my life that is being controlled by a fear of death, as in a fear of loss, which could be literal death or it could be a metaphorical death, like unable to pay a bill, wanting to leave a relationship that isn't working but fear that there won't be something better, wanting to get into a relationship because you fear that you're trouble when you're alone, or that you'll be lonely forever, things like that. Look at where fear of death, like, look to see it, and then figure out if you can untangle some of that, or if you even want to. If you don't, then don't. That's the nice thing about this reality. All right, everybody. Well, I got to get back to dashing, so I appreciate you watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.